Welcome to Key Tech. Please describe this channel if you are interested in today's video. Since the United States has continuously revised chip rules and restricted the shipment of a large number of chip semiconductor companies such as TSMC, resulting in the temporary inability to manufacture chips such as Huawei's self-developed Kirin 9000, Huawei has fully entered the field of chip semiconductors. Through large-scale investment in the domestic chip industry chain, Huawei has cooperated with domestic manufacturers to realize the localization of EDA tools above 14 nanometers and realize the localization of over 13,000 components and 4,000 circuit boards. The yield rate of 14 nanometers and other chips has also reached the world's leading level. However, in recent days, the United States has suddenly further revised its rules to restrict shipments of advanced semiconductor equipment and other products from countries such as Japan and the Netherlands. It is understood that the Netherlands will restrict the shipment of mainstream DUV lithography machines, but has not given a clear timetable, while Japan has restricted the shipment of 23 semiconductor products for domestic manufacturers such as Huawei, starting from mid-July. This is undoubtedly a huge blow to Huawei. However, domestic companies such as Huawei did not sit still. They have launched a counterattack and filed patent lawsuits against 30 Japanese companies, demanding payment of relevant patent fees. Huawei has mastered many necessary patents in 5G, 4G, Wi-Fi and other fields. The formulation of 5G network standards cannot bypass Huawei. Other manufacturers have also signed patent exchange agreements with Huawei. After Japan announced the ban, Huawei charged more than 30 Japanese companies 4/5 G and other patent fees. Foreign media said that this is the beginning of a counterattack, and this is also Huawei's retaliatory counterattack. Huawei has entered the field of chip semiconductors in an all-round way. Since the United States restricted the shipments of companies such as Lenovo and Huawei, Huawei has begun to aggressively enter the field of chip semiconductors. It is understood that Huawei has invested heavily in the domestic chip industry chain through Hubble and has cooperated with domestic manufacturers to realize the localization of EDA tools above 14 nanometers, the localization of over 13,000 components, 4,000 circuit boards, and the yield rate of 14 nanometers and other chips. It has also reached the world's leading level. These actions show that Huawei's strength in the field of chip semiconductors has been further improved, allowing Huawei to face various suppression actions by the United States more confidently. In addition to further strengthening its own chip semiconductor research and development capabilities, Huawei has also invested heavily in the domestic chip industry chain to create a world-leading semiconductor ecosystem. According to news, Huawei and the Chongqing municipal government will jointly build a factory which will bring more than $100 billion of investment in semiconductors to meet the growing demand for chips and semiconductors from domestic companies such as Huawei. In addition, Huawei has also cooperated with companies such as SMIC, striving to promote the rise of the domestic chip industry through strong support from the state. The US keeps revising chip rules. While Huawei and other companies are entering the field of chip semiconductors, the United States is constantly revising chip rules and restricting the shipment of a large number of chip semiconductor companies such as TSMC. This not only has a profound impact on the international market, but also affects the production and development of domestic enterprises such as Huawei. The actions of the United States just exposed the difficulties faced by domestic companies such as Huawei in achieving self-sufficiency. Huawei realized the consequences of letting it go, so it began to invest in the domestic semiconductor industry chain. Huawei has invested heavily in the domestic industrial chain to improve the production capacity of chip semiconductors in order to be more calm and comfortable in the face of US restrictions on shipments. However, the United States is constantly upgrading the intensity of chip rules. While reducing business and trade exchanges with Huawei and other companies, it is also setting up obstacles in the early stage of supervision between large companies and chip semiconductor companies to curb monopoly. Huawei charges patent fees from 30 Japanese companies. Not only the United States, but Japan has recently joined the ranks of restricting shipments. Japan has restricted the shipment of various semiconductor equipment by signing a tripartite agreement. Among them, chip raw materials and glue coating and imaging equipment have been severely restricted, starting from mid-July. For domestic companies such as Huawei, this is a further move to fight back, and Huawei and other companies have also counterattacked. Huawei collected relevant patent fees from 30 Japanese companies to demonstrate their strength and power in intellectual property rights and bring positive influence to its own development. What kind of impact this will have on the 30 Japanese companies remains to be further observed and studied. China's domestic chip manufacturers are gradually becoming stronger. Domestic manufacturers such as Huawei are very concerned about the restrictions on shipments in Japan and other countries. However, the technologies such as chips and semiconductors they own are in their own hands. Although they cannot obtain export licenses, they still have high value in China. Domestic manufacturers such as SMIC are also constantly conducting technological research and development, gradually improving their own strength. For example, SMIC recently announced that the risk of 28 nanometers and other processes has been further reduced, which already shows that many semiconductor equipment and raw materials have been localized. In addition, the domestic etching machine has also broken through 5 nanometers, and the rewinding machine has also broken through 14 nanometers. This series of technological innovations in China marks a new historical period for the domestic chip industry, and it also gives domestic manufacturers strong wings to the global market. Since 2020, the United States has continuously revised chip rules and restricted the shipment of a large number of chip semiconductor companies, which has seriously affected the production and development of Huawei and other companies. In response to the U.S. restrictions on shipments, domestic companies such as Huawei have adopted various approaches, such as investing in the domestic semiconductor industry chain and strengthening technology research and development. At the same time, Huawei and other companies also demonstrated their strength and power in intellectual property rights by filing patent lawsuits against 30 Japanese companies and accelerated the rise of the domestic chip industry. Although Japan and other countries have introduced rules to restrict shipments, the strength of domestic chip manufacturers has gradually increased, and companies such as Huawei have also taken counterattacks and other actions to further promote the innovation and upgrading of technologies in the fields of chips and semiconductors. In the future, the domestic chip industry will continue to maintain rapid development and continuously improve its own strength. At the same time, in the face of external restrictions and impacts, it will adjust its strategy and expand its international market share.